Hello students, this is Mr. Wilsey, and in this video we are going to look at objective number 12 in Algebra 1. The name of this objective is Writing Functions from Contextual Situations. You would have gotten proficient if you could do exactly that. You would have gotten advanced if you could take these functions and then evaluate and solve them. Now, in problem 12.1, the problem says, a plain cheese pizza costs $8.50. Each topping costs an additional $1.25. Write a function that relates the cost of the pizza, C, to the number of toppings, T. Now, the first step for working out problems like this is to identify what is the dependent variable. Okay? So in this case, what quantity depends on the other quantities in the problem? Well, in this case, it's the cost of the pizza. The cost of the pizza is going to depend on the number of toppings, and it's going to depend on the price per topping, and it's going to depend on the base cost of the pizza. So, that means that our function is going to look like this. C equals blank. The cost of the pizza equals some function. Now we know that the other variable in this problem is T, the number of toppings. So somehow the cost of the pizza is going to depend on the number of toppings. Now, this form is going to turn out to be a linear function. That means that it's going to look like C equals some number times T plus or minus some number. Okay? That is a linear function. Now the question then becomes, what number do I multiply by the t, and what number do I add or subtract from the t outside here? Well, let's first think about what number is going to multiply the t. This means if I add one topping, how much does the cost of my pizza increase by? Well, in this case it's $1.25. So 1.25 is the number that multiplies the t. Because each time t goes up by 1, c goes up by 1.25. Now, the final question is, what number gets added or subtracted? Well, in this case it's 8.5. And we're going to add that, 8.5. This means that even if we didn't have any toppings, the cost of the pizza would be $8.50, because that's the cost of a plain cheese pizza with no toppings. Let's move on to the second part of this problem. Use the function you found above to calculate the cost of a pizza with 4 toppings. Well, all you have to do is replace the t with 4. So c equals 1.25 times 4 plus 8.5, and then the answer is 13.5. Okay? So the cost of the pizza with 4 toppings is $13.50. You can write it like that if you want to, with an extra 0. Now let's look at problem 12.2. The Student Government Association bought 6 dozen Krispy Kreme donuts for $40. They sold each donut for $2. Write a function for the profit, P, earned by the SGA when they sell D donuts. So again, the first step here is to identify the dependent variable. What quantity depends on the other quantities in the problem? Well, your profit. Your profit depends on how many donuts you sell, as well as the cost of each donut and the amount of money that you spent to pay for the donuts. So our linear function is going to look like this. P equals. Now, the profit that you earn is equal to what? Well, let's see. You know that your profit is going to depend on the number of donuts you sell. D. So then, this problem just boils down to filling in the blanks. What number multiplies the D, and what number gets added or subtracted from this? Well, just like we did up here, let's ask ourselves, if I sell one more donut, so if D increases by 1, how much does my profit change by? Well, if I sell one more donut, then I'm getting $2 more, because that's the price per donut. So 2 multiplies the D. Now let's ask ourselves, if I didn't sell any donuts, if D was 0, then this whole thing would disappear. What is my profit if I don't sell any donuts? Well, look at how much money I spent to buy all of the donuts. I spent $40. But if I don't sell any donuts, I'll have 6 dozen donuts, but I will be in the hole by $40. Okay? That means that my profit is going to be negative $40 if I don't sell any donuts. So we're going to subtract 40 from the 2D. Okay? So let me write out what this would look like. P equals 2D minus 40. That is our function right there. Just like C equals 1.25, T plus 8.5 was our function up here. Now, let's solve these next problems. Use the function you found above to calculate the SGA's profit when they sell 22 donuts. Well, to do this problem, all we have to do is replace D with 22. Okay? So profit equals 2 times 22 minus 40. And you can calculate that. 2 times 22 is 44, minus 40 is 4. So your profit is $4 if you sell 22 donuts. Now, if the SGA made a profit of $76, how many donuts did they sell? Well, in this case, we're not going to replace D, but we're going to replace P with 76 because our profit is $76. And we want to ask, how many donuts do I have to sell to make a profit of $76? So, up here, we replaced D with 22. Down here, we are replacing P with 76. And then we're going to solve this equation for D. So in order to solve this equation for D, we have to first add 40 to both sides. We cannot divide by 2 first. We have to add 40 to both sides. Remember, start out, work your way into the variable that you want to start for. So 76 plus 40 is 116 equals 2D. And then divide both sides by 2. And this should be 58. I hope so. I'm doing that in my head. So, the number of donuts that you have to sell is 58 in order to make a profit of $76. Now, the final question here is, what is the maximum profit the SGA can earn? And then I give you a hint here. They must sell all of the donuts. Well, how many donuts do we have to sell? Well, we bought 6 dozen. So I have 6 dozen donuts available to me. 6 dozen is 6 times 12, which is 72. So I have 72 donuts. If I want to make my maximum profit, I have to sell each and every one of them. So I'm going to replace D with 72 instead of 22 like I did over here. So my profit, if I sell $72 donuts, is 2 times 72 minus 40. So P is equal to, if you calculate that, your answer should be, actually I don't know, I'll have to do it, 144 minus 40 is 104. Okay, so the maximum amount of money that you can make off of 6 dozen donuts is $104. Alright, that's it for 12.2. Now let's look at the final problem. A 1-gallon jug of milk starts with 16 cups. You use 4/5 of a cup for each bowl of cereal you eat. Write a function for the amount of milk, A, remaining in a jug of milk after you eat B bowls of cereal. Again, the first step for writing this function rule is to identify the dependent variable. What depends on everything else? Well, the amount of milk, represented by A, depends on how many bowls of cereal you eat, how much milk you use for each bowl, and how much milk you started with. Okay? So the amount of milk remaining is your dependent variable. So A equals what? Well, the other variable in the problem is B, so A equals some function of B. Then ask ourselves, what number multiplies the B? And then what number gets added or subtracted from the B? So, first of all, let's start here. What number is going to multiply the B? Well, to answer that, we have to ask ourselves, how much does A change by when B goes up by 1? So if I eat one more bowl of cereal, B goes up by 1, how much does the amount of milk remaining change by? Well, if I eat a bowl of cereal, I use 4/5 of a cup of milk. That means that the amount of milk remaining goes down by 4/5 of a cup. So the number that multiplies the B has to be negative 4/5. Okay? That's how much milk I use for each bowl. I take away 4/5 of a cup from the amount of milk that I start with. Speaking of which, how much do I start with? I start with 16 cups. So if I don't eat any bowls of cereal at all, this whole thing is 0, it goes away, so the amount of milk remaining is 16. Okay, does that make sense? If I don't eat any bowls of cereal, this is 0, so the amount of milk remaining is the amount of milk I started with, 16. So here's our function rule right here. Let me rewrite it just to be a little clearer. Negative 4/5 times B plus 16. That's our function rule. Now, this question here. Use the function you found above to calculate how much milk is left when you eat a bowl of cereal every day for 2 weeks. Well, if I eat a bowl of cereal every day for 2 weeks, then that means that I eat 2 weeks times 7 days per week is 14. I'm going to eat 14 bowls of cereal in 2 weeks. So let's replace B with 14 to calculate the amount of milk remaining. So A equals negative 4/5 times 14 plus 16. And that turns out to equal 4.8. I think so. You can check my math on that. Just calculate that. So the amount of milk remaining is 4.8 cups if I eat a bowl of cereal every day for 2 weeks. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think a gallon of milk would last 2 weeks. So that means that you probably use milk more frequently. You use more than 4/5 a cup for each bowl. Or you use the milk for something else. Now, let's look at the final question here. What is the maximum number of bowls of cereal you can eat? And here's a hint. You must use all of the milk in the 1-gallon jug. So if I use all of the milk in the 1-gallon jug, how much is remaining? So what is the value of A? A is 0. So the amount of milk remaining is 0. So 0 equals negative 4/5 times B plus 16. And the question is, what's the number of bowls of cereal if there's no milk left over? Well, all we have to do is solve that equation. So, first step I'm going to do is subtract 16 from both sides. So negative 16 equals negative 4/5 times B. Now I have a fraction multiplying the variable that I want to solve for. That means that I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, which is negative 5/4. Sorry, my ink is bleeding a little bit. Negative 5/4. You can do that in your calculator. negative 5 over 4 times negative 16 is positive 20. I promise you. So, you can eat 20 bowls of cereal using all of the milk in the 1-gallon jug. So, that is it for this objective. Hope you learned something, and come and see me to retake.